revolution in modern times. Teaching deaf and dumb people, where they realize that they can teach deaf and dumb people to speak without a particular language. So they succeed today. You have deaf and dumb people who hold doctorates, etc., and can be very educated without a question. In any case, okay, but here we are. So he says a person who can tell us, even though we said before, even though we never used, let's say, signaling to show competency, but only to show will. Here, writing is even better than signaling. And let's take a look. Amrav Khan Amarav, he says, Cheresh, a true deaf and dumb person, he's able to write this and tell us in the writing, give my wife a get. The answer is kos v'nos and get lishto. We can give a get to his wife, write it and give it, and it's a get that's good to oraisa. If he was married before he was deaf and dumb, it was a deraisa, a Torah marriage, it's a Torah divorce. Amrav Yosef, my Kamashmalan, so he says, listen, what is Rav Kana teaching me in the name of Rav? It's obvious. We know for sure that that's good enough. Tanina, didn't we learn? We learned in the Mishnah, we learned that if a person was dumb, no, it's in Ishtatik. A person became dumb, he couldn't speak. Marmulin, they said to him, get should we write a get for your wife? If the person nodded his head, yes, both can know we check him out 3 times like we discussed yesterday. And we established that he really communicates consistently. Okay, if he says no to the nose and the yes to the yes is correctly, they should write it and they should give it. So you see clearly, so if you see that they're just on a signal, we're allowed to write a get. Certainly writing is good enough. Amar Le Rav Zeira, he says, Elim Kamarta, what do you tell me? A person is a mute. Shani Elim, a mute person is different. Why? Because a mute person is competent. A person who's merely mute, and can hear, or a person who can hear and is mute is considered competent. Okay, why? To Tanya, because we learn Medaber and Shmeya, Zeu Cheresh. If a person speaks and can't hear, we call them a Cheresh, a deaf person. Shmeya ben Medaber, a person hears but he doesn't speak, Zeu Elim, that's the person we call dumb. The Zeb is that, and both of them, a person who can speak and not hear, if he can hear and not speak, they're completely competent. We never considered them incompetent. So, of course, in the Mishnah, those people are competent, and they're usually considered competent, so we can use their signal. Okay, that's for sure. Okay, but the Chiddush of Rav Kahana in the name of Rav is talking about a person who's normally considered incompetent. It's a person who's deaf and dumb. Nevertheless, if the person is able to communicate by writing, we consider them to be competent. And where do we see, back up to what we just answered, where in the Psukim do we see that we call a person who can hear and can't speak a cheresh? When a person who hears and can't speak, we call him a dumb person. It's written, the pasuk says, I'm like a deaf person, I can't hear. Where he says he's like a person who's dumb, who doesn't open his mouth. That's one place we learn. Alternatively, another way, we just see in the language that humans use, and that's the language that the Tana uses, is that people say, Ishtakamilulin. A person who is struck dumb, they say, Ishtakamilulin, his words have been taken. But if you look, it's like Ishtakel, Aleph Lamed, Il Milule, Mem. So it's like Aleph Lamed Mem. So Ishtakamilulin, the name for a dumb person, is an acrostic for what? For an elaim for a person who's dumb. I'm going to say he said, but if I have a kasha Rav Kahana who said that if a person is deaf and dumb, that he can instruct us to write a get even deraisa by writing. I'll cautionly the time. This is my kasha. We learned in lo yagi. Okay, probably elaim sheni yachol agib. We know that if a person, let's say a person believes that somebody else has testimony that's beneficial to them, so they demand from them to testify. And the person says, nope, I have no testimony in your behalf. He says, I want you to swear. So the guy swears. If he swears falsely, he doesn't have testimony. When he does, he has to bring a chatas. He has to bring carbon chatas. So the rabbis learn. The Brisa learns like this: when it says what im lo yagid, if the person is not going to tell the testimony that they're supposed to, but no savono, he's going to bear his sins. You have to bring a carbon chatas. Amai, okay, and that comes to exclude what that excludes a dumb person who couldn't have told the story. So a dumb person is excluded from the chatas for lying when he said that he doesn't have testimony. Amai, what do you mean? How can you tell me that he's excluded because he can't give testimony? According to you, since writing is good, so a person can give testimony from writing. Writing is like speaking. Abai says, no, get out of here. He says, you went too wide in your kasha. You assumed that when we said the name of Rav, that writing is good for the cheresh, that we said that writing is the equivalent of speaking. That's not what we say. Writing equivalent to speaking for all things. Amalei Abai says, no, Edus Kamak, you're talking about testimony? Shani is the Rahmana Amar, you're right. You're right that this guy can speak and he's competent. But by Edus, by testimony, it's not because writing is not competency, or it's not even because writing is not speaking. Writing is speaking. However, in the case of Edus, the Torah specifically by Xeris Akasa, by a divine decree, the Torah excluded the testimony by writing because it's a mipm from their mouths, okay, and not mipixavim, not from their writing. So really, you're right. You can't say Kash Rav Kana. You're right. Rav Kana said that writing is speaking, and but nevertheless, the Torah said that even though in other cases writing is indeed speaking, but when it comes to testimony, you can't give testimony by writing. You have to give it by speaking. Mesi Bey, come again. All your kasha. Kashem Shabbat, so okay, legitin. The same way, if we check a guy 3 times to see if he can communicate, in order for him to instruct us to give a get, both we can check a person also, but by checking 3 times, we can see if he wants to do business, okay, for business transactions, to see what his will is. We can let him give. It sounds like, and we can let him give testimony this way. You understand, through signaling, and he can give testimony that somebody was an inheritor. Katani Mias, we learned in a case they do. So you see clearly that we can use signaling for what? For him to give testimony. So you see, so how could you have answered me what? How could Abai answer what? That edus, that testimony is special, and that testimony by writing was excluded. We see clearly that if we accept testimony by signaling, we certainly accept testimony by what? By writing. It's ridiculous. Rav Yosef, by Menyuna, Rav Sheshes says no. He says Be'edus Isha. Over there, it was talking about what? Edus, that a woman's husband died. Remember, when a woman's husband died, I don't care what you got. I don't care what you guys think. The woman says, "Listen, I know what I'm doing. I'm getting married. Leave me alone." What's the way? If Edachad Neman the Surin, usually here, if one person could tell me that something was kosher, okay, certainly I have a right myself to do what I want. You can't tell me not to get married. I know my husband's dead. Leave me alone. You got a problem? Don't you get married? I'm getting married. So what is it? But we stop the woman from getting married. So since we're the rabbis, so the ones who are making it difficult for her, we're also lenient on her, and we accept what's normally not good testimony. We, the rabbis who made the problem, we make it easier. Right? So the Kila Baisha, the rabbis were lenient. So you're right, over there, we indeed accepted, even though normally we wouldn't accept signaling or writing for a testimony. Here we accept testimony that a woman's husband is dead, okay, through signaling, because we want to be lenient, and it's a rabbinic problem.
So an exception to the rule.
It's an exception to the rule, exactly. But normally, like we said, to any true testimony that's needed from the Torah can't be written. It won't work. We just get out of here. But still, we learn that we accept signaling. For a person to tell us that such and such inherited, Rabbi says you're still making a mistake. It's not. It's not about a testimony. It's about a person himself. If the person himself is, let's say, signaling. He wants to say, from the Torah, let's say a man dies and he doesn't told us anything about his estate. So automatically the boy's inherited and the eldest son gets a double portion. That's automatic. And now let's say a person wants to give gifts and rearrange his estate, he can. A person can. He can decide he's going to give everybody, he's going to give out gifts, he's going to divide his estate now in his lifetime. He's going to give out gifts to everybody equally. He can do what he wants. So here what it's talking about is where there was a person who was signaling to say, he wants to make the oldest son get not double portion, or he wants to make another son get more money. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking. So it's not talking about a testimony. It's talking about the father himself signaling to us his will. That's different. It's talking about the guy himself telling us how much he's going to give his eldest son, or in theory, how much he's giving any son. Okay, so what? But still, are we still depressed? Didn't we learn that the guy could signal to tell us about sales, buying and selling? Malav Lama, isn't he giving testimony about how other people bought or sold? Mara says, no, it's talking about he wants to signal it. He's buying or selling. Remember, we've said in the past that even people who are incompetent, the rabbis gave efficacy to their buying and selling, because otherwise they can't survive. If a person can't get out in the street and buy and sell, they can't live. Even a little kid has to be able to buy and sell, to be able to take care of himself. I had a chavrusa, his father, I tell you, in Lita, in the turn of the century, they were starving. They were starving in Lithuania. The food was counted mamish by the handful. I know stories of people mamish by the handful mamish. So my chavrusa's father, at 11 years old, he left Lita and he went to Cape Town. He didn't speak the language. At 11 years old, he went there to support his family. An 11-year-old boy went from Lita to Cape Town so that he could learn the language and make a living and support his family. And he did. And he did. He told everybody, he said that when he got to Cape Town, he was starving. He was 11 years old. He couldn't speak English, you know. He was 11 years old. He was starving. And he said he was scrounging, you know, to get up to each day just to live, forget about making money. And he said every day when he finally ate, the thought he had was, oh, look, at least today I'm not going to die. If I want to die, I'm not going to die from starvation because I ate something. And he said years later, when Baruch Hashem, he prospered and ran a business and took care of his family, really, Hashem blessed him. He said it never changed. He said even he was a very person. He had money and established. Each day he ate breakfast. The first thought in his mind was, oh, today I'm not going to die from starvation. It never changed. Yes, it was a big.
It's ingrained.
Yeah, it was incredible. So the thing is, though, so you see, but the point is, so that rabbis had to give even a child, and certainly a child or a person who's deaf, a person needs the ability to buy and sell. A person can't survive without those things. So the rabbis gave efficacy to their actions, but it's not talking about testimony. Now we're back to, we're going to ask Kasha on the original principle. The original principle, remember, we learned was that a person who's deaf and dumb, who's truly considered incompetent, according to the Torah, Midoraisa, still, Rav Kahana said the name of Rav, that if he can communicate by writing, he's considered what? Completely competent, not rabbinically. Doraisa is competent. Let me ask you Kasha. So we learn the following, that a cheresh, person who's deaf and dumb, they don't follow what he says, and we don't follow his remizo, so we don't rely on his gestures. Okay, so we don't rely on his no, this is actually mouth, this is actually lips, yes, actually with his mouth. Okay, and we don't rely on his handwriting, except when it comes to chattels. But not forgetting, you see that's all rabbinic. Okay, so we learn clearly that we don't rely on his handwriting, not for for anything derisa. Gemara says no, Tanai, you make a mistake. That it's true. There's a Tana against Rav Kana Amarav, but we have a Tana like him. The Tanya Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said the Medrash. He added to this. When is that true? Okay, that we're not going to accept the handwriting of a deaf mute when it comes to getting becherish mikaro. He said that's only by what? That's only by a person who is deaf and dumb from birth. Since the assumption here is that the person is deaf and dumb from birth can never become competent
because he can't learn.
Only a person who was once competent, who became deaf and dumb, he's capable of remaining competent. But a person didn't. Okay, well, pikuach v'nischarish, but he says, but a person who was originally competent and then he became deaf and dumb, who kosev, then he can write. Okay, Behain Chosman and he can write what he wants, and he can write together, and they can sign it. And therefore, what? So Rav Kahana was talking about when the whole principle we now limit him. He said the principle of Kahana Marav is only by a person who wasn't deaf and dumb from birth. But I told you, the Rashash says that today there's no, even according to that opinion, even with this opinion, today where we see clearly that we can
teach them.
We can teach even a true deaf mute even from birth. So that person can be considered competent even today. Okay, one second, you tell me what? You want to tell me Rav Kahana wasn't speaking about, we weren't speaking about a person who was deaf and dumb from birth. Didn't we learn Kashem Shekonsa Beramiza? Didn't we learn that this in a Mishnah that the same way that a person who was deaf and dumb from birth can marry a woman by signaling, okay, Kach Motzi Beramiza, so too can he divorce her by signaling. But that's okay. Now, Iba Ishta, now who's it talking about? If it's talking about his wife, Hachinami. Okay, I understand. He says, pardon me, I didn't say right, pardon me, we can take it out. So now we see what? So why? Because since the Kedushin wasn't a Kedushin, a true Kedushin, so he can make a divorce. Now, who's it? Okay, so therefore what? So you see that we do accept their signaling. So he says, now, Iba Ishto, says, Hachinami. He says, you're right. He says, if it was his own wife.
Signaling to mean that she can read or hand gestures.
Hand gestures. I can't
say that.
Yeah.
Read your lips.
Yeah.
Similar to what you're saying.
Yeah. We're just showing, but we're showing that he has. We are showing that he has competency. So he says,
No,
now,
where a cheresh who's from birth
yes,
would not be able to
Yes,
make
yes,
understandable lip
Yes,
gestures because he doesn't.
yes,
You can't read his lips if he can't form words.
right. So the word says, so Gemara says, Ibi Ishto says, he says, you're right. If it's his own wife, he's able to. Right? But we're talking about what? When we talked about, you're making a mistake. When we said that a person from birth who cannot divorce his wife, we're talking about his yavama. Why? Because since the yavama has a deraisa connection to him,
Right.
so he can't do it. So the point you're making a mistake. Yes, we said what? Yes, we said that even a person who's incompetent from birth can make signals because his whole marriage and divorce are what? Are the rabbanan. But when we said that a person from birth has no efficacy, we mean what? For the raisa, like for Yavama, where the connection is the raisa. The connection is the raisa. Yevimtum and Mango. I said, what are you talking about? One second. What type of Yavama talking about? Elaine was enough to let me. Shift the Yavama felt him from a brother who was also deaf. It's not true. Then with the same way that she came in with the signal, she come out with the signal. His brother's marriage was also Durabanan. Now we do Yivam Durabanan, by the way. The rabbis did teach us to take women who don't fall to us from the Torah, but we still take care of them. As a matter of fact, if you look in the Malbim says it was a tradition, like almost from the beginning of time. Almost the beginning of time, we always had a tradition for families to take care of women who were they would and always somebody in the family, even if it wasn't the primary din of Yivam, somebody in the family would come forward here, like by Ruth and all the places we come. It we had a long-standing tradition of families taking care of a woman whose husband died. Usually somebody steps up.
Well,
I have a friend in one of the somewhere up there in one of the 5 towns years ago. Very good person. So a woman in the neighborhood, her husband had gotten cancer, and as often happens sometimes, the medical bills devastated their finances. Yeah,
only in the United States.
It took all the money they had, and the husband died. She left him. The bank wanted to foreclose on the house. So I don't know if they do it anymore, but I don't know if you know, the banks used to go to the nearby houses and offer the house to the neighbor. Yeah, it was common. The bank would knock on the door of the nearby houses. So the bank came to his house and they said, would maybe be interested in buying this house over here. He said, you mean the house of the woman whose husband died and became a widow? They said, yes. He says, yeah. He says, I want the house. He went, he got 3 friends. They bought the house and they said, stay in the they'll stay in the house. Yeah, so stay in the house. He said, it was a beautiful. He says, yeah, what the house? It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. So we have a long tradition. So even by the Rabbanan, so if his brother was a cherish, it's true we would still try and fulfill the laws of Yivam, but what midrabanan? Okay, Ella the nafalei bi'achid. But it's the other way. We're talking about when do we say what that it doesn't work? It's when he got a Yavama from his brother who was completely incompetent, and there we have to say that it doesn't work. Okay, alternatively, I have a different answer. Now we're going to knock this out, but right now we're going to say what? That it is from a cherish, but it still doesn't work. Why? If it's rabbinic, it should always work. The answer is really talking about a case where he got the Yavama from his brother who was also deaf mute. So really signaling should work because it's only rabbinic. The original brother's marriage was only rabbinic. Should work. Okay. But there's a rabbinic decree against this rabbinic divorce. Why? Because if we let him use signaling, okay, or writing, whatever it is, to divorce this rabbinic case, the next time he's going to try and divorce a deraisa case when he's not allowed.
And people will be confused.
Yeah. Okay. Why? Okay. So so we say what? And we say what? And we stopped them, even though you're right. Really, it should have worked, even though what? Even though it was a rabbinic marriage, a rabbinic yavama. But we say, since if we let him get rid of rabbinic yavama by these means, okay, he'll end up also doing the same thing when it's the raisa.
What was your rabbinic rabbinic? Mean if the father say married her when she was
that would be an example, but here we're talking about a different case. It's
so
here
the
brother who died was a deaf mute. So his marriage was only rabbinic, So she's only when she doesn't really fall from the Torah to the brother. It's rabbinically. So that's rabbinically.
But what if the father married her when she was a
No, that's the right.
she was a deaf mute?
That's the right. Oh,
But
she was a
that's
deaf mute.
not-
If she was a deaf mute, it'd still be the rabbinic. Oh no, if the father married her, it might be it's the right.
That's what I'm asking.
And what
Yeah,
about
that
if
might-
the
that-
father
Yeah,
marries
yeah. So then it's the right. So then it's the right.
There's no Yavama.
Yeah. Huh?
Then she
No,
is
then
a
it would be.
Yavama.
Yeah, then it would be according to that. Yeah,
That would
then
be
it
a
would
Yavama
it would be.
Diraisa.
But it's got to double check all
So
that. But you're right.
And she can't get
Yeah.
it so.
Yeah, that you won't be out. That should be stuck. You're right. We're going to see that in a minute. You said good. Iochi Ishto Nami. If that's true, then even his own wife, who's the Rabbanan, you should stop him from divorcing if you're afraid. The Gemara says, no, it's not true. We don't make rabbinic decrees that way. Yevimto be yevimto michlafa. One person can make a mistake between his rabbinic yavama, okay, and another deraisa yavama will make a mistake. Ishto be yevimto lemichlafa. But to let a deaf mute divorce his wife, we're not going to be mixed up and thinks that he can divorce a yavama. He's not going to make that mistake. People's minds are clear. But still, would you ever make a rabbinic decree to stop a deaf mute for the sake of a pikeh? Well, tonight didn't we learn? Now be careful. All these cases are drabana. Take a look. Shneach, this is famous. Shneach and two deaf and dumb brothers are married to two competent sister girls. Two brothers who are incompetent are married to two sisters who are competent. And certainly if they're married to two sisters who are incompetent. Two sisters, even if they're married to two sisters, one competent and one not, it makes no difference. Similarly, if the two sisters who are deaf and dumb who are married, to two competent brothers, or it makes no difference. So they're married to two incompetent brothers, or if they're married to two brothers, one competent, one not. It all makes no difference. On all those cases, all the marriages we talked about are all rabbinic. So in any case, when one of the husbands died, they're all exempt from chalitza and yiva. Why is that? Even rabbinic, even midrabbana. Why is that? Because you know that whenever a woman, whenever a woman who falls to a yavam is forbidden to him, except on the basis of being his brother's wife, except for that prohibition, any other prohibition the Torah prohibits her from marrying him, it nullifies the law of yivam and chalitza. So since every one of these cases, the guy is married to the sister of the woman who falls, he's exempt. So even the rabbinic yivam is exempted by the fact that he's forbidden to the woman. Okay, but let's say the two girls are not related to each other. Okay, then you can marry them. And if they want to get rid of you, they get rid of them where they get. Why? Because since the whole original connection was only from a deaf mute, so he can give a deaf mute divorce. It's all fine. Element. Okay, so therefore we have a problem. So you see that we don't make a decree of a deaf mute divorce for the sake of a non-deaf mute. So we're going to have to explain, like we explained originally, that the Bryce was talking about where he got a yavama from his brother who is competent. Okay, and therefore what? So and therefore the get cannot really get rid of that. His get cannot get rid of the marriage of the brother who was competent, which was the right. Now, okay. Yeah, I want to show you now that we brought before a brisa that showed that we don't use the Cherish's handwriting to divorce his wife. And we said, Rosh Gamliel said, when is that true? When he was deaf mute from birth, but if he was a deaf mute after birth, it's fine. So now we're not sure. Did Rav Shimon Gamliel explain the original position and everyone agrees this halacha, or was he disagreeing? When a guy says, "But man, when is that true?" Blah blah blah. So is he explaining what his colleague said, or is he disagreeing? The original one said what? We can't use his handwriting to divorce his wife. Okay, and we said that was speaking about what? Somebody who was deaf and dumb from birth. Then Rav Shimon, no problem. It was somebody who's deaf and dumb. Then Rav Shimon said, you know when that's true that you can't use his handwriting, only deaf and dumb from birth, but deaf and dumb after birth you can. Now, is he explaining what his colleague said and everyone agrees, or is he refuting what his colleague said? And the colleague says, what? Even deaf and dumb after birth also cannot use handwriting. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, okay, he said, Chalukan alav chaver shel Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rav Shimon Gamliel is disagreed with by his friends. In other words, he was not explaining the first opinion of the rabbis, so to speak. The rabbis held that I don't care when the guy became deaf or dumb, his handwriting will not work. And only Rav Shimon Gamliel says what? That if it was afterwards, he can become competent. Amar Abaya Afanan Namitanina. Abaya says what? He says, I'm gonna show you that we learn, like Rabbi Yochanan says, that the first opinion, the rabbis indeed disagree with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, and they hold that even if he was deaf and dumb after birth, he cannot use his handwriting. Because we learn nishtates lo yotzi. Okay, remember because we said if a guy married a woman and she became incompetent, lo yotzi, he can't divorce her. Now, why is that? Why can't he divorce her? Okay, he can't divorce her. Why? Because we're gonna see that that the rabbis don't want people to, this woman is not competent, and even though we really theoretically we can divorce her against her will, according to the Torah, we can divorce a woman against her will.
But then she'll have no one to take care of.
But the rabbis didn't want us divorcing an incompetent woman. She's going to be out in the street. People will take advantage of her. We don't want to do it. Okay, this issue. Now, what about the other case? Let's say he became deaf and dumb. Oh, nishtata. Okay, or he became incompetent. Leyotzi alamas, then he can never get rid of her. My alamas. So why does it say he can never get rid of her? You know, so the first case he just said he can't divorce her. Then here it says he can never divorce her. My alamas. What do you mean he can't divorce her forever? What's it coming? Why is that emphatic language? Isn't that time what that even if he manages to learn how to write and communicate, he still cannot what? He still cannot divorce her. So does not show that the rabbis disagree
with Rabbi Shimon.
With Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Papa, he says low. He says Rabbi Yochanan said he says even without the words Rabbi Yochanan, okay, he loved Dashmin Rabbi Yochanan. He said, had Rabbi Yochanan not taught me what he taught me, I would have said like this. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, if Rishi Tanakama Hodat, I would have said, you know what, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel would have said the opposite. Really, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel was explaining the first opinion, and everyone agrees that the person who became deaf and dumb after birth and learns how to write is able to divorce. I said, what do I do with the emphasis of the second part? He says, you can't divorce her forever. Says, he tell me, the charif. It means that even though I can see that this guy is really, really competent, I can see he understands everything. Even so, even so, we never accept it. But really, what? But we're saying what? But we never accept it.
But that's just reinterpreting the Tanakh.
Yeah, yes. Everyone's agreeing. Everyone's agreeing. Just showing you a way to read the Brisa that doesn't show that the rabbis hold that he's not believed. Inami alternative, because of Yitzchak, or I could say that the emphasis is for this reason. Now, Rav Yitzchak told me what? The Torah showed him his kareshes. He wanted to teach me what? That from the Torah, really a woman who's incompetent can be divorced. Why? Because since even a woman is competent, we don't need her permission to divorce her. So what if a woman unfortunately is insane? We never needed her mind to divorce her. We could divorce her against her will. Okay, just like a woman who is competent, we can divorce her against her will. So we can divorce a woman who's incompetent. She has no will. What's the difference? Okay, so why do the rabbis stop us from divorcing a woman who loses her mind? So that the people shouldn't take advantage of her in the street. And therefore, you have to understand what it really means. He says, okay, so what was the extra language in the Sefer? When he became incompetent and he has no way, okay, since he has no understanding, it said we can't get rid of him forever. Why didn't it say in the Reisha forever? Okay, just to show me that it was only rabbinic, as opposed to the Seifa, when he can't divorce her really forever. Why? It's telling me what, that even though he can he can write. Why? Because it's holding like what? Like the Tanakama, that even a person who can write no, that even a person who can write is not believed, is not competent. Period. No, like here. In other words, since it's just telling us that the ratio was Rabbi Yitzchak. Okay, but once Rabbi Yochanan told me that the rabbis disagreed, like Rabbi Yochanan, remember we're defending like Rabbi Yochanan. Once the rabbis told me, so then we explain that the reason is because the rabbis, the Tanakhama held that even from writing it doesn't work. Okay, Now we have a new Mishnah. I want to discuss something with you. We learned earlier, you remember on I think, Samach Vav, we learned that a machlokas of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. Remember that according to Rabbi Meir, once a guy says to three people, "Oh, divorce my wife," etc., he made them a base and gave them permission to they can appoint other people, and he holds that that instructions can be passed on by a shaliach. But Rabbi Yossi holds that even if I tell a person, tell them to do it, instructions can't be passed on by a shaliach. The only argument is if he says explicitly pass it on. That's machlokas. It's interesting. The Chasam Sofer, a very interesting explanation on what's the machlokas. What's the argument? Whether words can be passed along from proxy to proxy. So he says the argument is like this. We all know that the custom of the whole world was to have agents before the Torah was given. The whole world was there. That's part of in normal business. Any civilized society, agency was a part of the law. And the truth is that the custom of the world was that agency worked even to pass on instructions. That's how the world did it. So the question is now, when the Torah ratified, so to speak, the Torah ratified agency, when it came to Sinai, and Hashem told us that agency has value, was Hashem ratifying the custom of the world, in which case even instructions were included in agency, passing on the instruction, or was the Torah's institution of agency was brand new and not based on the world, and therefore we have only the smallest amount. Only the smallest amount. You can pass on objects, but you can't pass on instructions from agent to agent. Interesting. It's a Chasam Sofer we have to say about it. Okay, so now we're really returning to old business. With this Mishnah, we're gonna read this Mishnah, and the Gemara is going to examine it in light of the Mishnah that we learned a little while ago of this machlokas, whether instructions can be passed on. Okay, so we learned the following. Amru, they said to a healthy person, or to a person who's dying, Nichtav get lishtecha. Should we write a get for your wife? We see that he's going to want. Why? Because we see that this guy might be dying, and we're afraid he doesn't want it to be a yavama. When he said write it, okay. Because of they. So then they said to the sofa, write it. Ladim, they told the witnesses the chasru, and they signed. Even though they wrote it and signed it and gave it to him, and he himself, the husband, personally gave it to his wife. The whole get is no good. Unless he says the sofer, until he tells himself the sofer. So if you write it, until he himself tells the witnesses.
So he's
sign it. So now what's going? He himself told him. No, he wasn't a shliach. He told him until the husband says the sofer, you write it. And the husband says to the witnesses, there's no agency here whatsoever. It doesn't work. You can't pass these things on to an agent. So now it's very strange. So the Gemara says, we have to analyze, is our mission according to Rabbi Meir or is the mission according to Rabbi Yossi? The Gemara says, Taimos. So if you analyze, look at the lashon of the Mishnah. If you talk, it says, when it says the get is no good, the lo amar tnu, the cases where he said, he didn't say give it, he said what? Write it. Okay? In other words, and a case where he says write it, even Rabbi Meir agrees that they can't pass anything on. Why? Because when a guy says to him, you write it, he's embarrassed for people to know that he can't write his own get, that he's not competent to write a get. So he told you write it. I'm not embarrassed in front of you. He doesn't want them to tell anybody else to write it. Why? Because he's embarrassed. Okay. So even Rabbi Meir admits that it's no good because he wants them specifically, to write it. But the inference would be Amar Tanu. But had he said, let's say the three guys, give it, okay. Once he says the three guys, according to a mayor, that's the best. And he's saying, pass it on. You point it out. Mani, who's that according to? Rabbi Meir, because now it's the implication. If he said to three, then it's good enough. He said, give it to three. That's Rabbi Meir. Damar, Mili, Mimsa, and Lashech. That's what Rabbi Meir holds that instructions can be given to a proxy to pass on to the other person. Gemara says, Ema Sefer, get out of here. Oh, that's very nice. The ratio makes sense according to a mayor. Ema Sefer, how you can read the end of the Mishnah? The Mishnah said, the end of the Mishnah is very specific. It says the only way the get is good is when the husband himself says to the sofer, write it, and the husband himself says to the witnesses, sign it. I told Rabbi Yossi. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. The Rabbi Yossi holds that there's no way to appoint the sofer or to appoint the witnesses except for the husband's explicit command, because why? That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi holds, what that you can't tell somebody to tell somebody else, okay? Because it doesn't work. Ratio of Meir is safe on Rabbi Yossi. You're gonna read me a Mishnah that the opening is Rabbi Meir and the end is Rabbi Yossi. Now, even though we don't like it, The Gemara answers in. Yes, it's true. It is. So we see that this difficulty is not a showstopper. In general, it's a valid difficulty to say that there's a change of authorship between one part of a Mishnah and another is definitely a loss of a point. It's difficult rhetorically, and it's a good kushya. Nevertheless, it's not a tiyufta. It's not a showstopper. It doesn't end the argument. We don't like it, but it can happen. It's acceptable. It's within the rules. It's not unprecedented. It's within the rules of writing Mishnah. Abai says, I'll give you a different reading of Mishnah. You're going to hold your hats up for this next little while. We're just going to have a bunch of alternatives how to reconcile the beginning, which sounds like what he can't pass it on, and the end that he could pass it on theoretically, and the end that you can't pass it. Abai Omar says, I'll explain it another way. Kula Reb Meir says, don't worry, the whole Mishnah is Reb Meir. Both the beginning and the end is Reb Meir. Okay.
So
what happened over there? The Lo Amar Tanu, okay, it's where he didn't say write it. He said it's only where he said we didn't say give it. He said write it. When he says write it, nothing else works. He said write it. He says Iachi. He says if that's true, okay, then why is it no good unless he told them? It should say unless he told them it should say Achiyomar Tanu. It should say it's no good until he says give it. When he says give it, he's not saying only you write it. Say it even according to a mayor. If he says give it to 3, it's good enough. It should say it's no good unless he says give it. It shouldn't say it's no good until he tells us over. It should say it's no good until he says to the proxy, give it. Me by a lay. That's what it should have said. Mar says, Ella, don't worry. Okay, don't worry. So I'll answer this way. The Sefer, it's still all Rebbe Meir, but the Sefer is what? Okay, Amar LeBeit Lasa. It's where he told 3 people. It's where he told 3. The law Amar he didn't say it to 3, and even Rebbe Meir says you have to say it to 3. Until you say it to 3 people, you're telling the 2 that you want them to do the job. Okay, Iachi says if that's true, then it shouldn't say until he tells. It should say unless he says to 3. That's what it should have said. Ella, okay, don't worry. We're still going to try and answer. You're right, but so we can't say it's all Rebbe Meir. But let's say Kul Rabbi Yossi. Let's say the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi. Now we have to explain the beginning. Okay, okay, but my skin. This we're talking about the Lo Amr Imru. It's where he didn't say it to them. Okay, because we said what? No, but as long as if he would say it, even
pass it on.
Even because we're assuming that what even Rabbi Yossi holds what that when he says pass it on, even Rabbi Yossi agrees that they can. So then still, if it's Rabbi Yossi, he shouldn't say until he tells them the sofer or the witnesses. Say until he tells them pass it on. Furthermore, says who said it's true? Who said it's absolutely true that Yossi says that when he says pass it on that even there it works? Well, didn't we learn the other way that even that Yossi doesn't hold it ever works? Didn't we learn ksap sofer? Hey, we said if there's a handwriting of the sofer plus 1 witness, kosher, the get is kosher. Over you said chasam sofer sheni, but we learned this earlier. He said when it said that the handwriting doesn't mean that. It means really the signature of the sofer and the signature of 1 witness. Chisda said masnisamani, and he said, who is that Mishnah? Who is that according to when it said that it works with the signature of the sofer? Rabbi Yossi, it's Rabbi Yossi. It's Rabbi Yossi who says that you can't pass on. Now why? Remember, we had this exact argument a few days ago. Why is that? In order to say that a signature of the get is written by the sofer and it's signed by the sofer and signed by 1 witness, we say it's kosher, but it's only kosher according to Rabbi Yossi. Why is it only kosher according to Rabbi Yossi? Because if you hold like Rabbi Yossi that you can't pass on instructions, then who told this sofer to sign the get? The husband. The husband. Who told this to sign the get? The husband. But if you say not like Rabbi Yossi, and really what you could pass it on, it's quite possible, really what that the sofer was never instructed to be a witness, and he was never really appointed. We'll see why in a minute. And the get's no good. So we're seeing that the only reason it's good is because we hold like Rabbi Yossi. So it's impossible that some proxy decided to appoint the sofer. If you hold it, it's really true that even Rav Sia agrees that if the husband said to the proxy, tell somebody to go do it, okay, nothing then the get should be no good because you can't have a problem. If I find the get that's signed by the sofer and by an aide, zimnin de amar according to you, Rabbi Yossi holds that he could tell the 2 to tell them. Sometimes the husband said to 2 guys, he told them, tell the sofer to write it, tell C and D to sign it. kisufa the sofer. But then the proxies they decided to do their own thing, and because they feel the sofer is going to be embarrassed. He wasn't appointed to sign chayshi. They're going to be afraid of his embarrassment. Okay, and they are going to appoint the sofer to sign. The husband didn't say it. So if it's possible for them to appoint somebody, they'll appoint not according to the instructions of the husband, and we can't have a problem. Ella, you're forced to say. Okay, so therefore, it can't be that Rabbi Yossi holds that the proxy can appoint somebody else. It can pass on the instructions. So it must be. So you're wrong. So therefore, I can't. Ella mechabarta. So the only way we explain our Mishnah ultimately what it's only mechabarta. The only satisfactory was like we said originally, Reisha Rabbi Meir, the Sefer Rabbi Yossi. The Reisha that says as long as he told 3 people give it, that they can't pass it on. That's Rabbi Yossi. There's Rabbi Meir. And the end that says that the only way it works is for the husband to personally instruct the sofer and to personally instruct the witnesses is Rabbi Yossi. Rav Ashi Amar, he says, I tell you, but cool Rabbi Yossi. I can't explain the whole Mishnah as Rabbi Yossi. And the Mishnah is really learning like this. It goes without saying. When it said in the beginning that if he says to them, write it, okay, it's possible. It doesn't mean that. The truth is, it doesn't mean if he says write it's possible, but if he said give it, it's good. Nah, whether he said write it or whether he said give it, it's no good. But it's just saying like this. Lo mebaya hecha de lo amar tenu. It goes without saying where he didn't say give it, okay, which is the weakest case where he said write it. Alafi amar tenu, even if he said give it lo, it's also no good. Okay, it's telling me. And it goes without saying he didn't say it to 3. We said it to 3 low, it still doesn't work. But this is all Rabbi Yossi. And it goes without saying where he didn't say it. If he said say it, Namila doesn't work. So therefore, what you don't make the ratio of the diuk that if he said write it, it's no good. But he said give. He says not only when he said write it no good, even he said give it is no good. Everything. So it's all you don't. So we don't make the inference you made. If you remember, about a week ago, I gave you a mini lesson in inferences, and for your reference back, you'll see how this works. But in the future, I will believe nether in the right time. When we have time, I'll elaborate more on the science of inferences, and I'll tell you why it's important. Once you train yourself, and this is how we'll get to know each other better, but this is something that it can help everybody to become outstanding in their learning. To understand the content of something without understanding the principle, not only is it hard, it doesn't last long. When you understand the content of something, not only without the principle, not only is it difficult to understand, even if you do, it won't last very long. But when you understand the principle of something, whatever you understood will last really forever. And the principle will allow you to understand many other things. And that's why I teach you these things, because they'll help you forever. Okay, the lesson I gave 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago was very short. It was just an intro, but I'll reiterate these things as time passes, and you'll see it'll become extremely helpful to help everyone's competency. When I was 20, my friends didn't want to learn with me. They all said I was too slow. But not that this is your goal to be fast, but you become faster than everyone. You become faster than everyone. Not that's not the goal, but when you understand things in principle, you'll be faster than you can believe. It's not the goal, but I'm just trying to explain to you that slowing down and understanding the principle will make you the fastest there is. You understand? It's not. I hope you understand what I said. I'm not saying your goal is to be fast. I'm just trying to show you the value of what I'm talking about. If you slow down and understand the principle, ultimately you'll be faster than everyone.
Because you understand what you're doing.
You understand the principle. It's much better. Okay, now, Tanya Kabasi Rabashi, we learned indeed, okay, like Rabashi, who said what, that Rabbi Yossi, even when the husband instructed the proxy to tell others that it's no good, Tanya Kabasi Rabashi, we learned in support of him because we learned Kasav Hasofer Lishma. The sofer wrote the get for the sake of the woman, like he's supposed to. And the witness is signed properly as they're supposed to for the sake of the woman. Even though they wrote it and they signed it and they gave it to the husband and son-in-law, and the husband personally gave it to the woman, Harry get batal. The whole get is no good. Okay, until they hear his actual voice saying, Shema the sofer, saying to the sofer, okay, till he says to them, write it and sign it. So you see from the fact that it says what? Shishmu, they actually have to hear his voice instructing them. You see that that's showing you that Rabbi Yossi agrees that when he tells them, no, even if the husband told them, tell them, it doesn't work. The sofer has to hear the husband's voice saying, write it, and the Edom have to hear the husband's voice saying, sign it. Now, okay, now furthermore, says the Gemara, when it said kola, what's kola? His voice? That is coming to exclude what Rav Kahana said in the name of Rav. It has to be specifically his voice, what, and not what, not writing. Okay, now we have a Mishnah. The following thing. I'm going to just give a simple introduction, and it shouldn't be too hard. Once a man's dead, he can't divorce his wife. It's too late. It's too late. It's too late. After he dies, it's too late. He has to do it before he dies. So and sometimes a person may mistakenly or even purposely say that he's giving a get after he's dead, and of course
Because
it's meaningless.
he doesn't want it to work.
Yeah, he doesn't want it to work. Yeah, he does what he wants to fool her, But you can't give a get after you die. If you give instructions there, or you write in such a way that the get's supposed to happen after a person dies, the get is no get. You can't. A woman can only become divorced by the live husband in his lifetime. But we have languages that sometimes make it clear that he means to say from now, from today. Sometimes it's clear that he means after death, and it's clearly no good. And sometimes we're in doubt. Now, I just want to explain to you that as opposed to gittin, by money, there is a difference. Why is that? Even though, can I give a gift after I die?
Yes.
No.
You can instruct it.
That's the rabbinic, but real, I can't give a gift after I die. Okay, now, but I can give a gift when I'm alive. But there is a way, usually, what if I say about after I die from, when I die from now? Good, so I'm really giving it from now. What if I say now and when I die? So by money, there is such a thing. Why is that? Because sometimes a person, there's two aspects to physical objects. There's the value of the object itself, and there's the use of fruct. There's the money you can make from it. We call payros. I can have a cow. I can rent a cow out without selling it. I can have a field, and I can keep the field and sell the fruits, fruits or use of fruct. So it's quite possible that a person gives something away but maintains part of it. For example, I may give a field away. I say, I'm giving you the field, you own it, but I have the rights to collect the fruit as long as I'm alive. That's a classic thing. So by money, such a thing exists. So it's quite possible that I can really say now and when I die, because really I'm saying now I'm giving you the actual product, but the use of fruct I'm holding on to until I die. But by gittin, that doesn't work. Okay, that's what we're going to see. So that's the difference. So now we saw after you die, no. Now, from now, yes. And sometimes, at least by monetary things, such a thing as now and when I die. Okay, now, having summarized, let's look at our Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if he says, this is your get if I die. Okay, this is your get after. Okay, if I die from this sickness. So this is your get after I die. In all those cases, when's he trying to give the get? After he's dead. Lo Amar Klum, he said nothing. He gets zero. It's absolutely nothing. You can't give a get after you die. By a yomi mati, but if he said, this is your get from today, if I die. Me'achshavi mati, this is your get from today.
From now.
If I die. Okay. From now, pardon me, if I die. Okay. How is it get? That's a good get. Why? Because he's really divorcing her from now. From now. If the event takes place. My yom ulachim, but what if he says from today and after I die? What do we do? Get made or get. We said that's doubtful. We don't know what he means. Why? Because if he really means, he might mean first he said today, and he said no, I changed my mind after I die. In which case it's no good. Or is he really just trying to say, okay, is he really saying,
really from now, but he misspoke.
Yeah, one way he's changed, right? No, is it really what he really means to say? Do we really need to say what? That if he dies, it's from now, okay? And pardon me. We don't know if he means to say that it's going to be now and after he dies, or does he mean to say what? Or does he mean to say what? From really, he changed his mind. He really meant after he's dead. So we say we're in doubt whether the get is a good get. Being mace, okay. And if he does die, what do we do? and what and the wife falls in Yom Choletza, she can only separate herself from the brother. She can't marry because maybe she was that, maybe she was divorced, maybe she wasn't. If he says, this is your get from today, if I die from this illness. And then he went out and he walked around normally. He went around his business, he got better. Then he got sick again and died. So why do we die? Did he die from this illness or not? Only so we have to have the doctors evaluate him, what he died from. Did he die from the first death? Okay, being love or not. If it was from the original, okay, how is it again? If he really died, even though there was an interval, as long as when it was originally the first illness that killed him, so then it's again. Being love, if not, ain't again, it's not again, and not again. Now the Gemara, wants to talk about this. We said when we learned that when it said, if this is your get if I die, we said it's as if he said this is your get after you die. If he said this is your get if I die, he really meant to give the get what afterwards. As long as he didn't say from today. If he said this is your get after I die, it's like he said if I die means after I die. So when I says if I die, it means after you die. But then the Mishnah said, Tani, we learned, yomi mati, but it said from today, if I die. From now, if I die. And it said it's a good get. When he says if I die, it's not afterwards. The ratio sounds like if I die is after I die. And then it said if I die, and it was considered what? Not after I die. So it's obvious. I gave it away actually. Okay. The truth is, if I die, it can be after I die, and it can be from now. Okay, it can be from now, and it can really be afterwards. But when? So how do we know? If he says from today, if I die, then that really means what? From today, on condition that I die. Commando. As if he said from now. But if he didn't say from today, he just said this is your get if I die. That's as if he said it's your get after I die, and it's no good. We learned furthermore. If we said we said this is your get if I die. We said it's zero. Now zero usually means I'm sure that it's not a get. It's absolutely nothing, right? Amra Abuna said no. Even though it said that if she's a Yavama, she can still only separate from the brother and she can't marry him. We're not sure if she's divorced or not. I said to Gemara, what do you mean? How could Rav Huna say that? He said nothing. Nothing means nothing. It's not even a doubt. Because no, he said nothing in terms of allowing her to remarry, or the Yavam Nami Asir, but she remains forbidden to the Yavam. He's just showing that the language can suffer what he said. How can you tell me what? That we're still doubtful, since in the Sefer it said choletzes, when it said, if he said from today and afterwards, so we said that's a doubt. In that case, it said choletzes. There it said what? She can separate from the Yavam and not marry him. Michlal, that implies the ratio where it just said it's nothing, and it didn't say she's choletzes. Okay, what? It sounds like what? He can even do yivam. The Gemara says, yeah, you're right. You know what? You're right. Masnisin to the Rabbanan. Okay, you're really right. He says, when our Mishnah, when it said, if I die, it's absolutely nothing. You're right. That's really according to the rabbis. Why? Because we're going to see, because the rabbis who said, let's say a guy said he's writing all of his possessions to his son after he dies. He has to write today and afterwards. But if he didn't write today, okay, then it really means afterwards. Okay, and a person can't give a gift to his sons after he dies. Okay, and therefore our Mishnah holds the same thing by a get, like the rabbis hold, that if he writes after I die, and he didn't write from today, it really means what? It really is absolutely after death, and it's absolutely nothing. So really, you're right. Our Mishnah really meant it's absolutely nothing. Rav Huna said that the law is that it's a doubtful case. He really was explaining according to Rav Yossi. The Amr goes, Rav Yossi said, when a guy said, he writes all his possessions to his son after he dies, and he didn't write from today, he held, it doesn't make a difference. Since the get is dated from now, even though he didn't say from today, the fact that the get is dated from today, the fact that the paper is dated from today, it's as if the man said from now. And therefore he's saying the same thing over here. Even though this guy, the language that he used was what? After I died, and the get should be nothing. But since he put a date on the get, it's from now. It's like he said from now. When I says Rav Yossi says what? If Rav Huna really is holding like Rav Yossi, chalitza nominated boy, then 1 second. If he's saying it's really automatically from now, then you shouldn't need chalitza. She's truly divorced. Then you shouldn't need chalitza either. You shouldn't need anything. She's not a Yavama. She was divorced. You shouldn't need anything. The Gemara says, Rav Huna. So you want to say, no, Rav Huna is in doubt whether Allah is like Rav Yossi. You're right. If it was like Rav Yossi, it would be absolutely divorced. He says, no, he's in doubt. He says, oh, I know Rav Yossi. So you want to say Rav Huna himself is in doubt. He said, I'm going to show you that Rav Huna was not in doubt that Allah was like Rav Yossi. Why? Well, I'll show you that he knew that Allah was like Yossi. Once upon a time, Rav Abua was sick. Chalash, Legabe, Rav Huna of Nachman. They came to Rav Huna of Nachman. Rav Huna of Nachman came to visit him. Amrle Rav Huna Rav Nachman. Rav Huna said to Rav Nachman, "Boy, mine, ask Rav Abua. Okay, halacha Rav Yossi. Oh, you know halacha." He says the halacha follow Rav Yossi or not. Rav Yossi says that the date proves that he said from now. Amar Leis or Rav Nachman said to Rav Huna, time Rav Yossi he says, I don't even know what I don't even understand Rav Yossi. Halacha by me. I'm going to ask if that's halacha. I don't understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to ask if that's halacha. I can't even say what it's saying. Amar Leis or Rav Huna said, by me halacha. Listen, do me a favor. You ask him the halacha, but time Rav Yossi, I don't mean halacha. You just ask him if that's halacha. I'll explain you. You have to find out if that's how he passes, and I'll explain you the reasoning. Boy, okay, be nice. So Rav Nachman asked Rav Abua. Okay, Amar Rav Abua told him, Hachim Rav, this Rav said, Rav Yossi. He said, Allah is Rav Yossi. The bus said, the Nafak. Now, when they got out of there, Amar said, now Rav Huna said to Rav Nachman, and now I'm going to keep my word. I'm going to tell you the reasoning of Rav Yossi. Allah is like Rav Yossi. How many times Rav Yossi? This is the reason of Rav Yossi. The Kasaber, why? Why does Rav Yossi hold when a guy said after he dies that it's still a good gift? The Kasaber is because the date on the paper on the bill of gift proves that he meant that even though he said after I die, he really meant what from today. Okay. So therefore, what? Okay, and we'll stop here. So now we have a kasha. So we're going to remain with the kasha today, which is what? How do we explain Rav Huna? If Rav Huna really believes the halacha is like Rav Yossi, then the person is truly divorced, and you shouldn't have to do chalitza. Thank you very much, Rabosai. You have 1 minute. I'll tell you one thing for Tisha B'Av in this. We learned last week all these stories. Okay, you gotta go. We have to go. Please go. You learned last week all the stories that brought about the destruction of the time of the temple.
Say again, I'm sorry.
You learned a bunch of stories last week. Over a fight of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, Yerushalayim was destroyed. For a chicken and a rooster, Turamaka was destroyed. For 2 trees, Beitar was destroyed. And other stories which are similar. So what's the common factor? I'll explain to you what it is. What happened? Sometimes people are constipated in their thinking and they can't relate. They don't relate outside of their own narrow experience. You don't relate outside your own experience. And you become you become like a rock. You're unreachable. Yeah, let me ask you a question. You're under the auspices of the Romans. They stole your 2 chickens. You're going to go and attack them? Are you stupid? Are you stupid? You're so uptight about your tradition with your 2 chickens? Or here, you have a tradition. Oh, these are special chuppahs from our special trees. What are you, stupid? Are you stupid? You're under the auspices of the Romans, like some of these. Unfortunately, God should protect us from these Jews who can't shut their stupid mouths. And run their stupid mouths in front of the guy, and they're stupid. They're dangerous people. They're conceited, dangerous people. Here, yeah, because of your tradition, you're going to go and attack the Romans. You understand? Because you're so wound up in your own thing. And I want to explain to you something. Because you understand. For this, you lose a temple. For this, you lose Eretz Yisrael. The answer is yes. You know why? If you can't relate to another human being who has arms and legs and a mouth and ears and eyes like you can't hear them. You think you can hear God? Then how does God give up on us? How do we lose Eretz Yisrael? How do you lose a temple? We must be unreachable. The answer is if you can't hear other human beings, you're unreachable. You're not gonna hear. You think your neighbor you don't hear, and you're gonna hear God speak? Are you nuts? God has no shape, no form, occupies no time, no space. You're gonna relate to God? You think you can't hear other people, but God you hear? It's crazy. I'm not yelling at you. That's the common factor. They're making a mistake. They Tisha B'Av, it's go be kind, go do kindness, help people, love it. That's not the problem. The problem is get out of your stupid, narrow-minded thinking. Hear another human being. When other people have different opinions and different feelings and different ideas and different sensibilities, put yourself in their place. Stop being wrapped up in your own. I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at myself. It's everybody. But that's the point. If you're wrapped up in yourself, what you think you can be closed off to people and you hear God? Is there anything dumber than that? People are. That's why God gave us people. People I can relate to. They have eyes and ears like me. They have feelings like me. If I can't relate to people, it's hopeless. We're hopeless. We're unreachable. God can't reach us. That's the story. That's what I'm trying to. That's what those stories are about.
Think about it. Jews are separated by Jews by their own person.
Yeah, it's stupid. And yeah.
Well,
I don't.
one of the greatest God I heard was from the Kotzker. It stated in Bohera, I guess.
Yeah.
Began say Kodesh T.U.L.
Yeah.
So, for what's this Kodesh? So it's like Kodesh.
Yeah.
Because before you're going to become Kodesh, Zeit a Mensch.
Yeah, exactly.
Anshe Kodesh.
You know Herman Wouk, the famous author? Herman Wouk.
Yeah.
A guy's in the book, a guy's talking to his father who's dead. The guy's addressing his dead father. He says, Pa, he says, he's crying to his father. He says, Pa, he says, you said be a mensch, but you made it look so easy. He says, you made it. But listen to this, I want to tell you something. You know, in Vayigash, so Yehuda has to step forward. This is it. He doesn't know that Yosef is Yosef. Yosef is the viceroy of Egypt. And that's it. They're finished. Yosef has to go and plead for the welfare of the brothers. So it says, Vayigash, I love Yehuda. He had to come close. He was right there. Why did he have to come close for him? The Orach Chaim, the famous commentary, you know what he says? We know from the pasuk that just like water reflects a man's face back to him, so people, they know what's in your heart. Other people feel, you don't have to tell everybody what you think of them. They know. People know what you think. Like the water reflects the face. A heart of man is reflected to a heart of man. People know what you think because you didn't tell him. He knows what you think of him. People know what you think of them. They feel it in their hearts. So he says, listen to this. He says, as far as Yehuda was concerned, Yosef was some filthy pagan viceroy of the Pharaoh. He despised him. And Yehuda realized that if he despises this vice Pharaoh, the vice Pharaoh's feeling it, and he's not going to be able to plead for the welfare of him and his brothers because he's going to be turned. He's going to feel the rejection. So he says, "Vayigash love." Yehuda had to sit down until he could empathize with this pagan, whatever, and be close to him, so that he would be receptive to his words. This is incredible. He had to change himself. Here, so what it means. So here, how did we all those stories and incredible cruelty that could only happen from not feeling, from not empathizing with another person. Once so even if you hate a guy, some guys are bums. I want to just tell you one thing quick. I'm not late. Just listen. People make a mistake. If you ask people what is sinas chinam, so they think, oh, that's hate. It's hating a person for no reason. A person who hates a person for no reason is insane. That's an insane person. People don't hate people for no reason. They hate them for good reasons. People hate people because they hurt them, because they're taking their thing. People are very good. You'll see when somebody hates somebody, they have very good reasons why they hate them. Only crazy people hate people for no reason. But sinas chinam is called if the Torah doesn't instruct you to hate somebody, that's called chinam. You have very good reasons why we hate people. But here's what I want to explain to you. Even you hate a guy, you're supposed to hate the guy. So if you finally put yourself in their position, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to do that. And listen to this. And some of the rabbis learn like this. Imagine a guy did wrong to you. What does it mean to love your neighbor like yourself? You have to put yourself in his position. He did wrong to you. Now imagine you did wrong to somebody else. I want you to know what I'm saying. If you're going to do to your neighbor the way you want to be treated, then when he treated you badly, now you have to decide, if I treated somebody else badly, how would I want the person who I treated badly to treat me? Hear this incredible? That is loving your neighbor like yourself. When he hurt me, I said, well, now let's imagine I hurt him. How would I want him to treat me despite the fact that I was the wrongdoer? And now I have to treat the wrongdoer the way I would want to be treated if I did wrong to him. Isn't that incredible? So at that point, if you empathize, you can't do it. In your mind, you're gonna tear this guy, you're gonna tear him, throw him against the wall. But once you relate to the person, you're not gonna do that. There's a limit. It's not gonna come. You're not gonna throw a guy out and embarrass him so utterly, you're not gonna do it as much as you can't stand the guy. That's what I'm trying to talk about. So I'm just trying to say here, the mistake is here. This is not some big, be kind to, take a Jew to lunch week. That's not what this is. That's not the point. The point is just empathize with other people. See another person's position, even when it's uncomfortable. A lot of people make us miserable. Well, some people are obnoxious. So what? So you don't know that. Everybody knows that. I told you this. I don't know if you were in one of my other classes. You're somebody's creep. There's somebody who can't stand you. I'm telling you. You don't believe me. There's somebody who can't stand you. Yeah. I'm sure you're a nice guy. There's somebody who can't take you. Because that's the way God made the world. There's a lot of different guys. There's somebody, just the thought of you makes them vomit. I'm telling you. It's true by everybody. That's the truth. That's human. That's human. Everybody's somebody's creep. That's not the point. So that's right. Everybody gets on somebody's nerves, and everybody gets different ways. And some people can't stand this kind of person. Some people can't stand that kind of person. That's the way it is. So what God gave us a Torah, and He said that's not the point. You learn to relate to other people, even though they're not like you. You don't need a mitzvah to love your neighbor when they like you. That's easy. You relate to them. The whole mitzvah is for people you can't stand. The whole mitzvah of loving your neighbor like yourself is for people for the people getting your nerves. The people who you relate to, you don't need a mitzvah. You see what I'm saying? We didn't need the commandment for that. The whole commandment was for people to get on our nerves. So my point is, that's my point. This is not get out and love your neighbor week. It's really what it's for crying out loud, empathize. And realize that even people that make you uncomfortable and get on your nerves and they bother you, and you have legitimate gripes, but relate. That person's afraid. The person's afraid they have there's a million problems why people behave like that. Relate. And you know what? If you were in that person's position, maybe you'd be worse. That's what Tisha B'Av is about. The point is emulate, empathize. At a certain point, you're right. You know what? You're right. But empathize. And then empathize, you'll behave differently. And that's why, and that's why I think that's the way. How do you lose a Beis Hamikdash? How does God give up? Whoever heard of such a thing? How did God give up on us?
By the way,
yeah.
When you talked about Yehuda and Yosef, if you take a look, the Trump is predicated on the Pirush Milah.
Yeah.
So by Yigash love Yehuda, it's a Kadma V'Yazla.
Yeah.
And by Yigash love Yehuda, Kadma V'Yazla
Revi.
And Zarko Munach Sego, by Yoma Adoni. So by the first one to approach Kadma V'Yazla was the Revi, Yehuda. He was the fourth brother. Okay?
Beautiful.
Vayoma Adoni, Zarko Munach Sego. Throw down your crown. Don't be such a big shot.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. Anyway, you understand the point. Yeah, that's the goal. Anyway, you understand that's the real thing here. So if we put, I hope you know what I can't stand Tisha B'Av. I can't take it. I don't want to happen every year. I'm disappointed every year. I don't want. I want to sit on the stupid floor. Yeah, I hate it. So we if you don't like it, there's a famous. I don't know if you know. I can't remember who it was something about Hasidim. So I can't remember who the Rebbe was, but one Tisha B'Av. Tisha was a long day. People don't eat. They're bored. The Hasidim were bored to tears. So they started playing tricks. So they got a pulley with a rope, and they set up a pulley in front of the Beis Medrash, and everybody came. They all have to do. They know what to do with themselves. So every guy who shows up, they trap him and haul him up. And haul him up to the roof. It's a big joke. They're all playing games. So the Rebbe came. They didn't see it was the Rebbe. The Rebbe comes. They trap him in the thing. They haul him up, and then they realize they just haul the Rebbe up to the roof. I think they came. And their mom was crying and begging him forgiveness. For playing a trick. They didn't realize it was the Rebbe. The Rebbe, gets out. He brushes himself off. He's like, he's at it. He walks into the shul. He opens up the Aron Kodesh, and he faces the Aron Kodesh. He says, "HaKadosh Baruch Hu," he says, "It looks like your Hasidim." He said, "Don't like your holiday." He says, "Maybe you'll take it away." He says, he says "They don't like it." Yeah. So if you don't want to be fasting and sitting on the floor of Tisha B'Av, so we have to do something about it. That's the point I'm trying to tell you. That's the point. Do something. So, and to do something is what I'm telling you. Do something is it's the guy you can't stand. And the people you don't like, relate to. That's the point. Yeah. Get out of your thing, and then we'll be okay. That's all. Thanks for listening. That's all. We already took the time. It's worth listening. Thank you. Thank you.
No, you never have to give this speech again.
Oh man, here our
You're not late.
Print deal. They didn't print the Kinnis on a book
Bob,
here.
amazing.
In Europe.